You have already been talking a bit about transdisciplinarity and the co-production of knowledge that is involved. Now, can you give a concrete example of such a transdisciplinary experiment that you have already initiated?
Okay, I just said we're quite at the beginning, but I think the platform on sustainable cities might be a good example here. Together with a colleague from our research center, a professor also from the public administration, and a professor from the architecture and urban planning department, we started an experiment, so this platform, I think at the end of 2015. And so then we brought together 20 academics from different disciplines, and also about 15 policymakers from the city of Ghent. And we tried to build a knowledge platform on wicked issues in the city of Ghent. And we believed, and we still do, that also our own city is able to function as a living lab for researchers. And just not only popular places like Barcelona or Copenhagen, also our own city is very relevant here. And the other way around, I think a university in the heart of the city can be considered as a real brain power. So why don't use this knowledge? So urban actors must use in a more effective way the academic expertise of Ghent University. And so that's why we thought that such a platform is a quite good idea. With this platform, we want to cross traditional boundaries at 3 levels. So first, within the university, as it crosses disciplinary boundaries, so that's the multidisciplinarity thing. But also, and as a second one, within the municipal authorities. So also a government, also an urban government, has his pillars, has his closed departments. And then the third one, the third traditional boundary, is the one between academics on one hand and urban actors like policymakers, companies, NGOs on the other hand. So that's also a boundary, and for the freaks, they often call this the quadruple helix. So what did we do? After the first meeting, we visited once again the mayor and aldermen involved in this initiative. And it were those politicians that decided, or at least defined, the 2 complex topics where we could start with, namely food and housing. And the latter, so housing or living, is a more or less a classic, almost settled issue, but it's very hard. So how to deal with gentrification in the city of Ghent, how to strive towards climate neutrality in all neighborhoods, or how to combine both questions or challenges. So it's about tough questions, and policymakers were really interested to discuss the problem definitions with us, to discuss possible solutions together with a group of professors and postdoc researchers from different disciplines. The other wicked issue is food. That seems more or less a new hype in city policies. Do we need an urban food strategy? Do we need food hubs to foster short chain initiatives? And what about our urban agriculture and so on? So on these 2 issues, we organized several academic workshops to learn from each other, to learn other assumptions from other disciplines, other theoretical perspectives, also from other disciplines, so other analytical frameworks, other methods, and so on. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to learn from a sociologist about the relation between food and social background, or about the routines we use to buy our food, or to learn from a professor of medicine about health and food, or from a bioengineer about the life cycle of meat, and so on. So, as already mentioned, we are not used to act and behave in that kind of interdisciplinary setting, but it's really worthwhile. So I must admit some researchers dropped out, and then they quit the platform because they didn't see the added value. They didn't feel very comfortable in this setting. But I think they were not against it. They just say, call me if you need my expertise. And I don't think that is a problem. not every researcher must engage himself in transdisciplinary initiatives. As mentioned already, we need both engaged researchers dealing with uncertainties in complex setting, as well as specialists who focus on one particular element of the problem. And yeah, maybe to conclude one more thing, last month there was a project call from the city of Ghent. It was on the upscaling of short chain initiatives, on the urban food strategy, or more specific on scenarios for food hubs in the city. And yeah, of course, the process we started within this new platform made it possible to write and to submit a really interesting proposal together with 8 or 10 professors and postdoc researchers from different disciplines. So that could be interesting. And by the end of the month, this month, I think the politicians will decide who will get the project. So fingers crossed for us. But this could be a real and interesting opportunity to experiment with a new research setting. And so a new multi and transdisciplinary setting for research.
How would this feed back into the system of academic research? I mean, can such transdisciplinary experiments lead towards a system change of our research system?
I think we need experiments to learn how to do research in another way, in a better way, especially when it concerns wicked issues. And I think, let me use the perspective of transition thinking to explain why even a small project is useful to make change happen. In a nutshell, I think we must show that there is an alternative, that there are alternatives, that there is another way when it becomes clear that the dominant way is not enough. So what is the transition approach? And I think, yes, it's a big field, but I am a fan of the multi-level perspective. That is a framework of Dutch professors Frank Heels and Johan Schot, and their analytical framework sees a system change as kind of a result of an interplay between different levels, and the 3 levels. So, and the first or highest level is the landscape level. So the landscape describes the big drivers, the overall societal trends, for instance, climate change, the famous wicked issue, or globalization or neoliberalism. And the landscape put pressure on the levels below. And the second level is the regime. The regime, that's an important one. That describes the dominant state of the socio-technical system. For instance, that could be the energy system or food system, which consists in turn of several dimensions: technology, science, culture, policy, industry, markets, and so on. And the lowest level in this framework is the niche level. And niches are seen as innovative spaces and initiatives that can trigger changes at the regime. So, and that is also important. According to this multi-level perspective, the momentum or the windows of opportunity for transition grows under a combination of increasing landscape pressures, internal regime contradictions, and the development of promising niches. And I think this way of thinking is more or less transferable, or at least inspiring, to all strategy concerning sustainability research. Because more and more we are confronted with wicked sustainability issues. So that's the landscape level. And I also think that some internal contradictions pop up. For instance, societal relevant research has to deal with the Web of Science religion. Also, universities see more and more private companies where professors and researchers try to or must achieve lots of quota. And the third one is creativity also gets lost in continuous strive for more proposals, more publications. So I think the current regime needs a change as well. And then when you are able to show at that moment that there is an interesting, mature alternative of dealing with those wicked issues, then it is possible that our experiments are given more appreciation or more recognition. So it's a small step, a necessary step in a broader picture towards a system change. It's not a revolution, I know, and I think also that fits more or less within the idea of goal-oriented incrementalism. And that's also typical for transition thinking. So to conclude, and maybe I sound a little bit too skeptical, but I don't want to be naive or too naive. I said before, the current system is quite stable because of the lock-ins. And the established order wants to keep the dominant model in place. So I think that a change will only occur step by step, but that's why we need experiments like that.
Mm-hmm.